Before we go any further, I need you to understand something. You did not simply come across this message. In some way, this message found its way to you. I know that sounds like one of those things people say because it sounds comforting, but stay with me for a moment because there is a difference between accidentally stumbling onto something and being led toward it. What is happening right now in this exact moment as you listen to these words is not just a random event. It is not only the result of an algorithm. It is not just timing. It is something much more precise than that. And somewhere beneath the noise of your day, beneath the endless thoughts and responsibilities competing for your attention, you already know it. You felt something when you saw the title. It was not exactly curiosity. It was quieter than curiosity, heavier than curiosity. It felt like recognition, like reading the opening line of a letter you wrote years ago and somehow forgot existed. A strange familiarity, a feeling that something inside you already understood before your mind had the chance to catch up. Because lately you have been carrying something. Not the kind of heaviness other people notice when they look at you, not the kind that earns sympathy, explanations, or concerned questions, the kind that settles behind your sternum, quiet, steady, constant, the kind of weight you have carried for so long that you almost stopped recognizing it as weight at all. Almost. But you still notice it. You notice it in the mornings before the day fully begins. You notice it during the small spaces between one task and the next, when distractions fade away and there is nothing left to focus on except the truth of where you are right now. You notice it when someone asks how you are doing. You smile. You say you are fine. And what you actually mean is far more complicated than that single word could ever explain. The truth, the real truth that you have not spoken out loud to anyone lately, is that you are tired. Not weak, not broken, not falling apart. Tired. There is a very important difference between those things. And I need you to hear that difference clearly because the story you have been telling yourself about what this exhaustion means is not the whole story. Not even close. You have been doing the work. Maybe not perfectly, maybe with moments of doubt, maybe with setbacks that made you question how far you had really come, maybe with nights when old feelings returned and sat beside you longer than you wanted them to. But you have been doing the work. You have been choosing yourself in ways nobody applauds, in ways nobody notices, in ways that never make it into the version of your story you share with other people. The moment you chose not to send the message, the morning you got out of bed, even though staying there would have felt easier, the evening you sat with painful emotions instead of running from them, the times you resisted reaching for your phone, the moments you allowed silence to exist without filling it with distractions. The choice you made again and again to keep moving forward, even when moving forward felt like walking through something thick, invisible and resistant. Even when nobody around you could see how difficult it was, those choices matter. They are not small. They are not meaningless. They are everything. The part of you that feels exhausted right now is not the part that is failing. It is the part that has been carrying more than its share for much longer than it ever should have had to. And I want you to know that this effort has been seen even during the moments when it felt invisible. Welcome to the 4th second. I am your friend, and today I want to talk to you about what it means when a message finds you. Not the surface level version, not the version that sounds nice written beneath an inspirational quote, the real version, the deeper version, the version that Carl Jung spent much of his life trying to explain in language, the rational mind could accept without immediately rejecting it. Because Jung understood something that many people spend their entire lives resisting. He understood that the psyche, the living intelligence of your inner world, is not passive. It is not simply a storage space for memories, regrets, wounds, and conversations you replay late at night. It is active, it moves, it responds, it continually pushes toward wholeness with a quiet determination that does not ask for your permission, and it does not wait until you feel ready. When you are truly ready for something, not in theory, but in reality, the kind of readiness born from loss, struggle, disappointment, and the decision to grow instead of harden, something begins to shift. After life has broken you open and you choose to expand through that opening rather than seal yourself away from the world, the psyche begins to organize itself differently. It starts arranging, connecting, guiding. It begins preparing the conditions for whatever comes next. And the logical mind often calls this coincidence because coincidence feels safer. Coincidence allows us to remain in control. The alternative asks much more of us. The alternative suggests that perhaps you are being guided, that perhaps the life trying to reach you has been reaching back all along. So let me ask you something, and before you rush to answer it, sit with it for a moment. What have you been trying to figure out by yourself? Because there is something very specific happening inside you right now. There is a version of your life that you have been holding quietly in your heart for a very long time. You have not been obsessing over it. You have not been gripping it desperately. You have simply been carrying it, the way someone carries something precious and fragile when they are not yet sure whether to hold on or let go. A version of your life where something unresolved finally finds resolution. A version where what has remained suspended between you and another person or between you and the future, you can almost picture, finally settles onto solid ground. You have not given up on that vision, but lately, in your most honest moments, when the performance stops and the armor comes off, you have started asking yourself difficult questions. You have wondered whether continuing to hope makes you foolish. You have wondered whether protecting that private hope against disappointment is wisdom or denial. You have questioned whether the part of you that still believes is strong or simply afraid to let go. And that question is exactly why this message found you today. Because the answer is neither. It is not foolishness. It is not wisdom. It is something more precise than either of those words can fully describe. What you are carrying is discernment in progress. You are learning the difference between hope that supports your growth and attachment that demands pieces of you in return. And that is one of the most important lessons a person can learn. It rarely arrives neatly. It rarely makes immediate sense. It comes in layers. It arrives through confusion. It brings setbacks that convince you hope was a mistake, then moments of clarity that feel too delicate to trust. And right now, you are standing in the middle of that process. From the inside, growth rarely feels inspiring. It often feels like being stuck. It feels like standing in a doorway, unable to return to the room behind you, unable to fully enter the room ahead. The room behind you is familiar, even if it caused pain, even if you outgrew it long ago. You know how it works. You understand its language. The room ahead is different. It is uncertain, unpredictable, and yet it contains everything you say you want. The doorway itself is uncomfortable. The waiting is exhausting. The uncertainty stretches longer than you expected. And still every day you remain there. You continue showing up. You continue trying. You continue choosing not to return to what no longer fits you, even though nobody is rewarding you for that effort. Not yet. Jung called this process the transcendent function. It is the psychological movement through which opposing forces inside you begin creating something entirely new. What you want and what you fear, who you used to be and who you are becoming, the past you are still grieving and the future that is calling your name. These opposites do not resolve because one defeats the other. They do not settle because one side finally wins. Instead, they create a third possibility, something neither side could have imagined on its own, something that only becomes possible because both tensions were held long enough to transform. The transcendent function does not work according to your schedule. It does not appear when you decide you are finally ready. It does not arrive because you have figured everything out. It does not wait until circumstances become perfect. It emerges when enough of the old structure has dissolved to create space for what is trying to enter your life. And that dissolving is often the part people misunderstand. Dissolving feels like stagnation. It feels like confusion. It feels like losing certainty. It feels like standing still while everyone else moves ahead. But the dissolving is not evidence that nothing is happening. The dissolving is the doorway. The pressure you are feeling right now is not the pressure of something ending forever. pressure. It is the pressure of something trying to be born. You are not stuck. You are in the middle of becoming. And becoming is one of the most disorienting places a person can live, because you are no longer who you used to be, but you are not yet the person you are growing into. Most days you have to navigate the world from that in-between space, without a map, without guarantees, without certainty that you are doing it right. And I want to stay here for a moment because I think you need to hear this clearly. The in-between is not a mistake. The in-between is not proof that you failed. It is not evidence that life has forgotten you. It is not a sign that you are behind. The in-between is the work. It is the most important part of the entire process. And yet it is the part that receives the least recognition, because from the outside it looks like nothing is happening. People who are living in the in-between often look completely fine. They go to work, they answer messages, they meet their responsibilities, they show up for the people who depend on them. They laugh at the right moments during conversations. They make plans. They keep moving through their days, and nobody knows. Nobody can see that. Beneath all of that, an entire internal reorganization is taking place. They are rethinking everything they once believed about themselves, everything they thought they deserved, everything they believed love was supposed to feel like, everything they accepted because they thought they had no other choice, everything they carried simply because they had grown used to carrying it. And they are beginning to ask themselves difficult questions. What am I no longer willing to tolerate? What burdens were never mine to begin with? What parts of me have been waiting for permission to exist? That reorganization is happening inside you right now. It is quiet, it is invisible, and it is one of the most sacred things about where you are in this moment. Now, I want to talk about the other person, the one who has been on your mind, the one whose name still lives in a particular place inside your chest, a place you cannot always access, a place that sometimes opens without warning. At random hours, during completely unrelated moments, a song begins to play. A certain quality of light fills a room. Someone says a word or phrase that once belonged only to the two of you, and suddenly there they are again. I want to talk about them because they are part of this message too, not the center of it. You are the center of it, but they are part of the story. And what I want you to understand about them may be difficult to hear, especially if you are still in the part of this experience where the pain is loudest, where unanswered questions still sting, where silence still feels sharp. They are moving through a process of their own, a process they did not choose, a process they cannot fully understand from the inside, a process they do not yet have the language to describe. And that process is harder than they allow anyone around them to see. Because beneath whatever version of life they are presenting to the world, something deeper is happening. They are confronting the distance between who they have been and who the most honest version of themselves requires them to become. That gap does not close easily. It cannot be ignored away. It cannot be distracted away. It cannot disappear through busyness, new routines, or pretending to feel differently. It closes through reckoning, and reckoning asks difficult things of people. The face of that reckoning may look familiar. It may look like you, not because you are responsible for saving them, not because your healing depends on their awakening, not because your life must pause while they figure themselves out. None of those things are true. But because you represented something real during a season of their life built on performance, a season filled with distance, careful management, controlled emotions, walls that kept everyone at arm's length, and the reality of what you offered them did not disappear simply because the relationship changed. The depth you brought, the presence you carried, the genuine attention you gave, the honesty you offered, those things did not vanish. They went underground. And underground things have a way of making themselves known. Underground things continue growing. They move toward the light, whether the surface welcomes them or not. I am not telling you to wait for them. I want to be absolutely clear about that, because I know how easy it is to hear something like this and turn it into permission to put your life on hold. That is not what this is. What I am telling you is something much more important. The version of you that is rooted in her own becoming, the version you are building right now in the exhausting in-between, in the work nobody sees, validates, or celebrates, is not in competition with love. She is the condition for it. The real kind of love, the kind that does not ask you to shrink yourself, the kind that does not require you to become smaller so someone else can remain comfortable, the kind that does not force you to hold your breath, the kind that does not require constant self-monitoring, the kind that does not ask you to translate yourself into something easier to digest. Real love can only meet you when you are standing fully inside the truth of who you are, without apology, without performance, without the constant anxiety that comes from needing another person to prove that you are worth staying for, and you are closer to becoming that version of yourself than you have ever been before. Even if it does not feel that way, especially because it does not feel that way. The moments before real change rarely feel like change. They feel like stagnation. They feel like waiting. They feel like silence. They feel as if the universe has misplaced your coordinates, as if life has forgotten where to find you. Jung understood this. He observed that the most significant shifts in a person's psychological life rarely announce themselves ahead of time. They arrive after periods of tension, periods that people almost always misunderstand. They mistake them for failure. They call them regression. They assume nothing is working. They decide all their effort has been wasted, when in reality what they are experiencing is the necessary pressure of transformation. The work beneath the surface, the final stages of preparation before something new can emerge. A cocoon does not feel like becoming. It feels restrictive. It feels dark. It feels like being trapped inside a place that no longer fits, and then one day the walls begin to break. You are not failing. You are experiencing the kind of pressure that often comes before transformation. That pressure is not random. It is purposeful. It has been building for exactly as long as it needed to build. Every difficult moment has been doing something inside you. Every disappointment, every lonely evening, every choice to keep going, every time you chose yourself, all of it has been shaping you in ways you may not fully understand yet. One day, you will look back on this chapter with different eyes. You will understand what it was preparing you for. You will recognize the hidden work that was taking place beneath the surface. But before that perspective arrives, I want you to trust something. Trust that the quiet work you have been doing has not been wasted. Trust that the mornings you chose to get up and continue have mattered. Trust that the private choices you made when nobody was watching have counted for something, when there was no reward, no applause, no recognition, only the quiet dignity of doing what was right for yourself. Those moments mattered. Those choices were building something solid, something real, something that is almost ready. And there is one more thing I want to say about the person who has been on your mind. I want to say it carefully because it is easy to misunderstand. They are being changed by your absence. Not in dramatic ways they would necessarily talk about, not in ways they could easily explain, but in the quiet way. Real change often happens underneath the surface. In places people cannot fully access consciously. The version of you they carry in memory is not frozen in time. It remains alive within them. It responds to who they are becoming. It asks questions the older version of themselves never had to answer. It sits quietly in ordinary moments. It does not argue. It does not demand attention. It does not even need words. Its presence alone becomes the question. Who are you choosing to be? Are you making that choice consciously? Is the life you are building actually yours? Or is it the life that once felt safest when fear was making your decisions? Those are uncomfortable questions. People do not go searching for them willingly. Reckoning finds them sometimes in unexpected ways, the same way this message found you. Not because you caused it, not because you owe anyone your healing, your patience, or access to the future version of yourself, but because truth does not disappear simply because someone stops listening. It grows louder. The harder a person works to suppress it, the louder it becomes. And they have been working very hard. It is beginning to show. But this is what matters most. This is what I need you to carry with you long after this message ends. Long after today passes, long after whatever happens next between you and this person, your healing cannot depend on someone else's timeline. Your becoming cannot remain parked in the waiting room of another person's process. That is not just advice, it is a psychological truth, the version of you trying to emerge, the grounded, whole, rooted version of yourself that this chapter has been shaping cannot fully appear while your life remains organized around waiting for someone else to catch up. It needs your attention, it needs your investment, it needs your belief, it needs you to understand that your story is the primary story. You are not a supporting character in someone else's journey. You are the lead. You are the author. You are the one who chooses what happens next. And the beautiful truth beneath all of this is simple. The more fully you step into that role, the more you become the person the right connection can actually find. You are not becoming unavailable by healing. You are becoming visible. You are becoming clear. You are becoming rooted. You are becoming findable. You are not moving on by becoming whole. You are becoming someone worth moving toward. There is a version of this story where everything you have been holding on to, everything you have been working toward, and everything you refuse to give up on finally comes together in a way you cannot fully see from where you are standing right now. Not because it is guaranteed, nothing in life comes with guarantees, but because you have done the kind of work that often creates that kind of outcome. Because life, the universe, or whatever name you give to the greater mystery of existence, has a way of responding to people who choose to be real, people who stop performing and start living, people who become quiet enough to hear what they truly want, people who become brave enough to keep wanting it, even when the evidence around them seems to suggest otherwise. And now I want to speak to the part of you that is afraid, not the strong part. That part is doing fine. It has carried you this far. It has helped you survive the difficult days. It has gotten you through the heartbreak, the uncertainty, and the moments when you thought you had nothing left to give, and it will continue carrying you forward. But the frightened part of you needs attention too. The part that wakes up at 2 or 3 in the morning. The part that exists in that strange darkness that only belongs to those hours. The part that wonders if you have already waited too long, if you have hoped for too much, if you gave too much of yourself to something that never truly knew how to receive what you offered. The part that sometimes questions whether the mistake was bigger than a person, a decision, or a particular moment. The part that fears there is something wrong with the way you love, something wrong with the fact that when you care completely. The fact that you show up with your whole heart, the fact that you love deeply, and that depth has never seemed to protect you from disappointment. I want to speak directly to that part of you, and I want to say this slowly. I want to say it clearly. You did not make a mistake by feeling what you felt. You did not make a mistake by wanting what you wanted. You did not make a mistake by hoping. You did not make a mistake by loving fully. The depth of your feelings has never been the problem. It was never too much. It was never the wrong thing about you. The only mistake you could make now is deciding that your capacity to love is a weakness. The only mistake would be convincing yourself that what makes you extraordinary is actually something that needs to be hidden. Because it is not a weakness, it is not a flaw, it is not a burden. It is one of the most beautiful things about you. It is the unique quality of your soul that allows real love to exist in your life. Not only possible, but natural. Because the right kind of love is not frightened by depth. The right kind of love does not ask you to become smaller. It does not ask you to hold back your tenderness. It does not ask you to ration your affection or protect someone from the intensity of your honesty. It welcomes it. It understands it. It was built to meet you there. And before this message comes to an end, I want to leave you with something I hope stays with you long after these words are over. You are standing at a threshold, not at the end of your story. Even if life has felt like a series of endings lately, this is not the end. It is a threshold, a crossing point, the kind that appears only after enough of the old has been released to make room for something new. The kind your soul opens only when you have done the work required to walk through it. And walking through that threshold is rarely dramatic. It does not arrive with fireworks. It does not come with a loud announcement. There is not always a moment when everything suddenly becomes clear. More often, it arrives quietly. It looks like a morning that feels slightly different from the one before it. A sense of peace appearing where anxiety used to live, a moment of clarity that settles inside you without asking for attention, a decision that feels ordinary even though it changes everything, a conversation that shifts something in your heart, a pause that allows you to breathe differently, a single breath that finally releases something you have been carrying for far too long. Then another moment comes, then another choice and another. Slowly, without your full understanding, without needing your permission, the life that has been forming in silence begins to reveal itself. The life that has been assembling piece by piece while you were doing the work, while you remained in the doorway, while you continued showing up, while you refused to abandon the version of yourself that knows what she deserves, that life begins to take shape. It begins to step into the light. And one day you look back at the doorway that once held you, the doorway that felt like a prison, the doorway that convinced you nothing was changing, the doorway that made you believe you were stuck, and you realize something remarkable. You are no longer standing there. You crossed it. You made it through.